What unsolved mystery has absolutely no plausible explanation? Came home from work with a 12-pack of drinks. I was walking up to my door when I dropped said 12-pack. A bunch of cans roll out of one end, so I stopped to pick them up and put them back in the box. But there are 13. No matter what, one of the cans won't fit, and they were all clean. No chance of a soda just being left outside. I count 13 cans when I get inside. No idea how that happened. In another universe you drop your 12-pack and can only find 11. About 2 years ago my sister was home alone while my mum was at work and I was at school. I finished early that day and was home at around 1 PM. I was talking to my sister and she casually mentioned my mum came home for a while. Right away I thought that was odd because my mum works a few towns over, and even if she came home on her lunch break she'd have to leave to go back by the time she got here, but I thought maybe she had an appointment or something. So I asked my sister if she said anything. Here is what my sister says happened. She was upstairs in her room when she heard the front door unlock, so she walked over to the stairs to see who it was. The stairs were facing the front door so you could see it from the top of the stairs, and saw my mum taking her coat off and hanging it up. She looked over at my sister without saying anything, after which my sister was just like, "Oh okay, it's just mum," and went back to her room. She also didn't hear her leave. When she told me this I was pretty spooked because my mum wouldn't have not said a word. She'd say hi at the very least. I proceeded to call my mum to ask her if she'd been home recently just to make sure, and just like I thought, she hadn't been home since she left that morning. We still don't know who or what my sister saw, but I was afraid of being home alone for the next 2 weeks lol. Maybe a lookalike intruder who decided to GTFO after such a power move from your sister, just checking her and going back to bussiness. When I still lived at home and came back from a night out, my mother would often be up reading a damp. If I wasn't too tired I'd sit with her a bit and chat before going to bed. This was regular occurrence for years. A couple years after I moved out I get a text from my mom one Sunday morning asking where I'd gone. Was a little surprised as I was just in my apartment. She tells me that last night I came home late and we chatted for a bit, and she was surprised that I had left the house so early in the morning. Now occasionally, I would still stop by my parents' place to crash for the night depending on where I was in the city, but I'd always let them know first. Figured my mom has just dreamt this. So I call her and explain that I wasn't there and ask what we talked about. She summarizes the conversation and gives me details about things she shouldn't have known about my night out egg. What was going on in the lives of the friends I had seen that night. Never figured it out, but now my mom teases and says she knows what I'm up to all the time. I once did a magic trick in front of 20 people as a teenager. We had orchestrated it, so there were 2 of us. So the trick is, I ask someone from the audience to pick a card, hold it above their head in front of the crowd, but card back facing me, so the entire crowd sees the card. Now someone on the other side of the window behind the crowd also sees the card, and with the crowd facing forwards, they don't see him. So he plasters the card from another deck on the window, and when he's done doing that, I throw the entire deck at the window, and lo and behold, their card is now stuck on the other side of the window. What happened surprised not only the crowd, but myself and my co-magician as well. I throw the deck and the exact card is not only plastered on the other side of the window, it is also stuck on our side of the window, right next to it. My mind was blown and I still can't explain it to this day. We played it as a part of the trick, so nobody in that crowd knows what sort of black wizardry went down that day. Personal mystery. 20+ years ago I had a very brief job selling gas services door to door. Side note, I'm not good at selling things, especially those I don't truly believe in. Anyway, as dusk just started to arrive, near 5 PM, I knocked on a door and an old woman answers. I gave her my standard "we can save you $$ by switching to XXX gas." We look over your latest bills and our offerings to compare. She tells me, "I'm sorry, honey, I don't live here. This is my son's house. Let me get him for you," and I politely accept. After maybe 5-7 of waiting, I think maybe they'd forgotten me or were trying to blow me off, so I have one last knock, and this time a younger man, mid-40s I'd guess, answers and asks if he can help me. I give him the same sales speech and he stops me midway and says now is not a good time. We just buried my mother today. I'm apologized and quickly backed away. I tell myself it was a nice way to mess with the door-to-door guy, but I really don't know to this day. So, my mom's dad died when she was 2. My grandmom never remarried or dated, so my mom grew up without a father figure in her life. It really affected her in a way that's really hard to describe, and still does to this day. She talks about it a lot and tends to be very dependent and fragile, I think because my grandmom raised her very sheltered. My mom kind of has this obsession with her dad and is constantly asking my grandmom and other relatives about him and what he was like, which is understandable, but still sad. He died a long time ago, 50 plus years, so she only has a handful of pictures of him, which she really cherishes, all black and white. One of these few pictures was a small, black and white picture of him sitting on a porch with his mom, aka my mom's grandmother, or my great-grandmother. In the picture, they were seated about 5 feet apart from each other, each on one side of the picture. The picture itself was in a small frame, on the dining room, on top of this weird desk cabinet thing. It was on a shelf pretty high up, 5.5 feet off the ground, and recessed by about 2 feet because of the desk. I note this to emphasize that it wasn't like on an end table or something, it wasn't easily accessed. Behind it in the frame was a baby picture of my brother. You know how people will put a picture in a frame over another one, but for whatever reason leave the previous one in there, behind it. Anyways, one day, on my way home from work, I got a call from my mom. She was really quiet and distressed and asked me, "Hey, did you do that to my picture?" I had absolutely no idea what she was talking about, so I said so. We moved on, hung up, and I drove home. When I got there, I asked her what she'd been referring to, and she showed me the picture. Holy. Someone had cut out her dad and his mom and placed them side by side together in the frame. It was done very sloppily, and the rest of the picture was gone. The picture of my brother was nowhere to be found. We looked through the trash for the pictures, my brother, and the rest of the pic of her dad, and they weren't there. It was really bizarre. And they weren't like lovingly cut out. When I say sloppy, just imagine when you were a little kid and had to cut something small out pretty fast, so you basically just got the general shape, and that was enough. I mean, a section of the man's head was lopped off. After investigating and asking questions, this is the information we have. It wasn't me, unless I just randomly got completely blackout one night, retained the motor skills to do something like that, and for some reason covered my tracks. According to my mom, it wasn't her. According to him, it wasn't my brother. It wasn't my mom's fiancé. Additional info, the 4 of us are the only ones with unrestricted access to the house, that is have keys. Only my brother and I ever drink. My mom occasionally has a glass of wine or something, but she's really tiny and medicated, so she gets trashed if she drinks any more than that. My mom and dad both think it was one of my friends from when we pre-gamed at the house one night, but A, I asked everyone it could have been, in a completely neutral way, and they were all baffled. B, none of them were ever alone long enough to do that, let alone find scissors, pick out a picture, SDSSDZCM1 that is so clearly important, nice frame, black and white, not immediately recognizable people to non-family, and do the deed, without being noticed. C, the sloppy cutting, and the way all the evidence was disposed makes it seem malicious, but they were slid closer together, so someone, presumably, knew they were related. None of my friends would have. D, none of my friends would have done that because it's rude, presumptuous, and weird, and we're all in our mid-20s. E, we pre-gamed at the house once over break. One time. And, it was a pre-game. There's no way anyone got drunk enough to accidentally that up. Or, like I said, was alone long enough to do that. 2 days before the Space Shuttle Challenger blew up, I dreamt I was at the launch. The shuttle took off and caught the gantry. It started to veer off and I could hear the occupants screaming. 2 days later I was having a home haircut and my daughter came in to tell me the news on the TV. It sent shivers down my spine. Of course it was coincidence but very creepy. The strangest thing was that I wouldn't have attended the launch. I live in UK and such a visit was unthinkable. Like and subscribe for more daily Reddit videos.